A stingray's tail spine can punch through solid bone in under a second, and every marine park worker knows it. Alice Henley had fed stingrays at this exact platform 4 times and believed that made her safer than everyone else around her. So what really happens when someone who thinks they know an animal best gets it fatally, horribly wrong? Alice Henley was already past the railing when the staff member told her to step back. Not hovering near it, not leaning casually against it, but fully extended over the edge with her right arm stretched toward the dark water below. The feeding platform at the marine park sat low over a shallow lagoon, close enough to the surface that visitors could see the flat, ghostly shapes of southern stingrays gliding just beneath. The water was clear and warm, and the rays moved through it like slow shadows, their wide bodies rippling at the edges as they circled the platform in lazy loops. They were used to people. That was the problem. The staff member, a 24-year-old marine educator named Daniel, had spotted Alice from 12 feet away and moved toward her immediately. He had seen her posture before, not from Alice specifically, but from a certain kind of visitor, the kind who arrives with history. Alice had visited this platform 4 times over the past 2 years and made sure people knew it. She had mentioned it at check-in that morning. She had mentioned it again when the group gathered for the safety briefing. She held the information like a credential, something that separated her from the first-timers fidgeting nervously at the back of the group. Daniel asked her to move back from the edge. Alice turned her head without moving her body and told him she was fine. She said she had done this before. Her arm stayed where it was. Southern stingrays are not aggressive animals. That fact is true and important, and also deeply misunderstood by the people who repeat it most confidently. They are bottom feeders that spend most of their lives pressing flat against sandy ocean floors, filtering small creatures from the sediment. Their eyes sit on top of their bodies. Their mouths face downward. They do not hunt. They do not chase, but they do protect themselves. And the weapon they use for that protection is a barbed spine located at the base of their tail. The spine is not a stinger in the way most people imagine. It does not inject venom like a needle. It drives upward with sudden, reflexive force when the animal feels pinned or threatened, and it is serrated along its edges, designed by millions of years of evolution to go in easily and come out with enormous damage. The spine of a large southern stingray can reach 6 inches in length. It can penetrate bone. Daniel had flagged Alice's feeding style twice before she reached the edge that morning. The first time was during the briefing when she had interrupted him to demonstrate her own grip technique to the couple standing beside her. The second time was 15 minutes later when she bypassed the designated feeding stick entirely and reached directly into the chum bucket with her bare hand. Both times, he had corrected her. Both times, she had nodded without changing anything. Now she was past the barrier entirely. And a supervisor had just appeared at the end of the platform, moving toward her with the kind of calm, deliberate stride that people who manage emergencies learn to use when they do not want to cause a panic. The rays were already circling closer beneath her. The water barely moved. The supervisor's name was Greg, and he had worked the Stingray platform for 6 years. He reached Alice in under 30 seconds and delivered the warning clearly and without softness. Step back from the barrier. Use the feeding stick. Stop leaning over the edge. He did not frame it as a suggestion. He used the flat, certain tone that the park's incident protocol required for repeat corrections, the kind of language designed to leave no room for negotiation. Other guests on the platform had gone quiet. A woman near the back pulled her young son slightly behind her. Everyone was watching. Alice turned to face Greg fully this time. She let out a short breath, the kind that signals mild irritation being managed for a public setting. She told him she had fed stingrays here 4 times. She told him she knew how they moved, how they reacted, what made them skittish, and what didn't bother them at all. She said she wasn't a tourist. She said it exactly like that. Not a tourist. Greg held the boundary. He pointed to the feeding stick in the rack beside her and asked her to use it. Alice looked at the stick. She looked back at the water. She said, "Okay," in a tone that meant something closer to fine, if that's what you need. Greg stepped back 2 feet. He did not leave the platform. Alice picked up the feeding stick, held it for a moment, and then set it back in the rack. She turned back to the water and reached over the barrier again with her bare hand, dropping a piece of squid directly from her fingers toward the surface. Greg started moving toward her again. He was 8 feet away when the large ray came up. It was one of the bigger animals in the lagoon, its wingspan measuring close to 4 feet across. Staff had logged it regularly over the past 18 months and noted its bold feeding behavior near the platform edge. It came up fast, drawn by the squid dropping through the water, and surfaced directly beneath Alice's extended hand. She made a sound of pure excitement, a sharp exhale, and leaned further over the barrier to close the distance. Her torso passed the safety rail completely. Her center of weight shifted forward over the water. The ray was at the surface now, its wide, flat body visible just below her fingers, its tail trailing behind it in a slow drift. Alice pressed her palm down against its back, holding it still, trying to steady the animal for the photo she was already framing in her mind. The ray felt the pressure. Its tail began to rise. The movement was over before most people on the platform understood what they were seeing. The spine drove upward in a single, clean arc. The reflex so fast it registered as a sound before it registered as an event. A short, wet impact. Alice made no dramatic sound. She pulled her arm back and straightened up and stood completely still for 2 full seconds. Her expression blank, her left hand moving slowly to her chest. Then her knees gave way and she dropped backward onto the platform boards with a sound that made the woman at the back of the group grab her son and turn him away. Daniel reached her first. Greg was a step behind, already pulling his radio. Alice was conscious and her eyes were open, but she was not speaking. Her breathing was shallow and irregular, pulling in short draws that didn't seem to be moving enough air. The entry point was not visible at first. The spine had driven through the left side of her chest, below the collarbone, at an angle that penetrated the chest cavity. The external wound was small. The damage inside was not. The negligence reveal came later, in documents that Alice's family and their legal team worked through over 18 months. The marine park had received 2 prior incident reports involving guests leaning past the barrier at this exact section of the platform. One in 2019 and one in the spring of the year Alice died. Neither report resulted in structural modification to the barrier. The feeding stick policy, according to internal training records, was listed as recommended practice, not enforced protocol. A coroner's review of the platform found that the barrier height at the section where Alice stood measured 4 inches below the marine park's own internal safety specification. That specification had been written in 2018. The barrier had never been adjusted to meet it. Paramedics arrived in 11 minutes. Alice was airlifted to the regional trauma center. The Stingray spine had caused cardiac tamponade, a condition in which fluid or blood collects in the sac surrounding the heart, compressing it until it can no longer pump effectively. It is survivable with immediate surgical intervention. The intervention came too late. Alice Henley was pronounced dead 40 minutes after the airlift. She was 38 years old. The marine park suspended all stingray feeding sessions the following morning. The announcement was posted quietly on their website with no press release. Greg, the supervisor who had issued the direct warning minutes before the strike, was reviewed internally and cleared of all liability. The coroner's findings confirmed he had followed protocol. The barrier at the platform was raised within 3 weeks, brought into compliance with the internal specification that had existed on paper for 6 years without ever being enforced. Alice Henley had stood on that platform 4 times. She had fed those animals with her own hands and walked away every time. That history had felt like proof of something, like knowledge, like safety earned through repetition. It wasn't any of those things. It was just luck she had used up without knowing she was spending it. The stingray that struck her was not removed from the lagoon. Wildlife assessors determined it had responded exactly as the biology required. It felt pressure. It defended itself. It did not know what a repeat visitor was. It did not know what a credential was. It only knew that something was pushing down on it from above, and that the answer to that was the one tool it had carried its entire life. Some creatures don't recognize expertise. They only recognize threat. And in her final moments at that platform, Alice Henley learned that the stingray she had been feeding all along had never seen a friend. It had only ever seen a shadow across the water. Those are the horrifying last moments of stingray feeder Alice Henley.